they're curious, they're open to seeing their own flaws, which is not always easy.
Yeah,
But
that's a tough
someone,
one.
so yeah, but somebody that can say, I'm not perfect and I am fallible and I am open to learning new things. I understand that I don't know everything and I might not know everything. And so I think that belief really can help to make someone coachable. At the end of the day, it's just this willingness. Like it's a willingness to show up and to share and be honest, and to know that there is space for growth.
Welcome to the Coachability Code podcast. This is your host, Jordan Ring. Coaches, you ready to be coached? Let's go. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. I have Jennifer Recla on with me. Am I saying the name right?
You got it.
Amazing. I'm having her on with me today to talk more about coaching, coachability, and just how we as coaches can help our clients help themselves. So, Jennifer, thank you so much for popping on today. Super appreciate you. Glad you're here. If you want to introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Yes. Hi. Thank you, Jordan, for inviting me today. Hi, everyone out there. I'm waving from Colorado, sitting on my porch looking at the mountains right now. I have my own coaching and consulting company focused on leadership, particularly senior leaders, helping them navigate their time, build high-performing teams, and lead with confidence. And I have worked in corporate for a long time in learning and development, doing that internally for organizations, and now I do it externally.
Amazing, amazing. We'll dive into that more. But first of all, let's do some icebreakers. I want to know
Ooh,
what your
yeah.
favorite book, favorite movie, and you don't have to pick a favorite if there's multiple, so I won't hold you to that. And also something weird about you that not everyone knows, but that you're
Okay.
also comfortable sharing.
Oh, yes. So I'm one of those people that when anyone asks me to just pick one, it's so hard. I have to pick like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
three. But there is one book that's coming to mind. I love horror. I love horror movies. I love scary books. And one of my favorite scary book authors is Dean Koontz. And there's this book called The Taking that I read
Okay.
years ago, and it still sticks with me. So for scary books, I just love that. When it comes to fun female beach read literature, there's a book called Sushi for Beginners that I read years and years ago. Also, just a really fun book. And then when it comes to the leadership development space, I love Multipliers by Liz Wiseman and The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. So I actually picked four. And
I
then
love it.
movies. Oh gosh, again, it's so hard to pick. My favorite scary movie is called The Strangers. I love Jurassic Park. I just
Me
love
too.
big action movies, and I'm really excited about the new one coming out. And Wizard of Oz, my kids are doing The Wizard of Oz as a play right now for theater camp. So it's just bringing back all these memories of my favorite movie as a kid. And then the last question was about something that people might not know about me.
Yeah, something weird, something you like to
Yeah,
share. Yeah.
giraffes. I am obsessed with the giraffes. It has been a thing since I was a kid. I think I did a book a report on giraffes in like second grade or something. And so I've just, people bought them as gifts for me. I've just
Mm-hmm.
collected them over the years. I have a mouse pet. If you go into my office, there's just giraffe stuff everywhere. And my dream is to go to this place. I think it's in Kenya. It's like a giraffe commune. And you can stay there and have breakfast. And the giraffes, they bring heads into eating. And it's just, it's magical.
That sounds super cool. I've never heard about that. It makes me think of like the kitty cafes that they have. I don't know if you've heard of those. I've not been in them because I'm
Uh-oh.
allergic to cats. But it's basically like a
Oh,
cafe with cats everywhere. It was kind of like my worst nightmare. But like I could see how that would be appealing to someone.
yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, I would love that. Like mini giraffes, if I could just have like mini real giraffes. Have you ever seen those memes or like AI images of like a mini giraffe, like they have mini ponies? I would
Hmm.
totally own one of those if they were real.
I think that would be super cool. And my sister is the one that she's so like I made me think of it when you said that 'cause she loves hippos. And basically
Oh,
her
yeah.
entire house she has hippo stuff everywhere, like anything hippos you could possibly imagine. It's so interesting how that stuff can kind of become so tied to someone's personality, right? Like, hey,
Yeah.
you love this, so here's all your gifts, and then they're like, yeah, please keep giving me stuff. So it's
Yes,
cool.
it's so creative, some of the stuff they come up with.
Yeah, and you're like, I didn't expect that to be. How did you work hippo into that? Like that doesn't seem
Right?
possible, but yeah, then it's there.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, it's cool.
exactly.
All right, cool. So you kind of already introduced yourself a little bit, but this is a chance to just like talk a little bit more. So if someone says, "Hey, Jen, what do you do?" How do you respond to that?
Sure. So I usually lead with something similar to my introduction, where I talk about working with senior leaders, usually in the nonprofit space. That's just my background,
Hmm.
and really helping them to not work on weekends anymore. This overwork that happens, especially in nonprofit and in healthcare, I want to stop that. I want people to work normal, manageable work
Hmm.
weeks. I want them to feel like they can communicate with confidence, have healthy conflict with confidence, give feedback with confidence, and build strengths based teams that get results. So that's really my overarching goal of what I focus on. And then I do that through one to one coaching, team development activities and workshops, and leadership development speaking engagements.
Amazing. What is the primary reason that you would say that someone comes and like seeks out your services?
Oh, that's a hard one because I get a lot of different challenges that people
Hmm.
come to me with. So sometimes it's someone in the HR space or learning and development space that just
Hmm.
says, we're a small organization. We don't have a lot of support when it comes to leadership development. We don't really have a learning strategy. Can you come in and help us? Or it could be somebody that says, I'm struggling with communication, which is such a broad topic. But
Hmm.
people tell me that I'm too direct or I talk too much or I'm not speaking up enough. So there's a lot around communication challenges that I get and they want support in that space. And then another big one is I'm overwhelmed. I have
Hmm.
so many responsibilities. I'm trying to take on this leadership role. I'm trying to lead the team. I'm trying to get to these key performance indicators that we need to meet, and there's just not enough time to do it all. So those are probably the three main avenues that people will come to me and the challenges they share with me.
Yeah, and I think that that makes sense. And I, because I'm always just so curious because I think coaches across all the different avenues, right? Like there's different reasons people come to us, but
Yeah.
they're different reasons, but they're also there's so much similarities. And like I feel
Mhm.
lost or I feel stuck or
Mhm.
I feel overwhelmed about XYZ or about insert anything that we can potentially help people with.
Yeah.
It's always just interesting to me like what those reasons are because I think each industry will have their own specific ones, but then there's so much carryover too. Like that overwhelm. I mean, I totally see that with people that come to me for book coaching and
Mhm.
writing help. I've been trying to do this for years. I don't know where else to go. I don't know how else to
Yeah.
get there. And I felt that way when I last year I got a health coach because I had an ankle surgery. I gained some weight. I was like,
Mhm.
okay, I want to get back to where I was, and I couldn't do it myself. I was super struggling, and I was doing all the things that had worked for me in the past, but they weren't working anymore, and I was stuck. And I was like, okay, I need to consider getting help. And I met this health coach, Matt, and he was amazing and was able to help me
Yeah.
lose over 30 pounds and get to a place of being in better shape. And it was almost exactly what you were saying. It's like I was overwhelmed with trying to just do it myself, and I knew that I couldn't.
Yeah, there's so much support that's needed for leaders. And this pervasive problem I've seen when I worked within organizations, we promote somebody because they were great technically. So they're an
Hmm.
individual contributor. They're really great at that job. They get things done. And we say, promote them to a leader. Well, all of a sudden, I'm in this role. It takes a different set of skills. The majority of my time, I shouldn't be doing. I should be leading and guiding and
Hmm.
coaching and mentoring and supporting and encouraging and advocating. I should be thinking and visioning all of these things that can sometimes feel less tangible than
Hmm.
I got this report done and I completed this presentation and I followed up on these emails. And we don't always support them in that. We put them in this position and say, okay, good luck. No, we don't get them in leadership classes. We don't get them a mentor. We don't get them a coach. Or we do, but it's too late. It's after 6 months of fumbling. And as people get higher in these roles, as they haven't had the support they need, sometimes I get executives coming to me and they haven't had the basics. They just haven't had
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
support along the way. And so sometimes it's let's just start with managing your calendar and managing your time and prioritizing so that you have space to actually invest in your own growth and your own development. So that's why I'm so passionate about
Mm-hmm.
leadership development. I've just talked to so many leaders who are like, I kind of stumbled into this role. And then they're like, here you go. And I got a little bit of support, and my manager's trying to coach me, but they're also busy with the things that they need to do. And so that's why I do what I do. I'm just so passionate
Mm-hmm.
because leading can be an adventure, it can be magical, it can be exciting. You just need the right tools and support and resources to help you.
Yeah, definitely. So when you're thinking of your best student, the person that you say, okay, they took what I had to say and they made it their own, they made it to that next level. What is it about them? And talk a little bit specifically about like someone that you think of. You don't have to name them, of course,
Sure.
but just thinking about them, like what was it about them that they were able to find that success with you?
There's two people that come to mind to me that I just constantly go back to as, oh, they were just so
Yeah.
ideal. And some of the things were just coming to sessions prepared with questions, things they wanted to dig into, topics they wanted to discuss, challenges. They thought before we got on the call about what they wanted to dig into,
Yeah.
which certainly makes my job a whole lot easier. And we're focused on the things that are most pertinent to them. So that was one thing, was just preparation, taking the time
Mm-hmm.
to think about it ahead of time. Part of it too is just this intense curiosity, wanting to know more, wanting to learn more, this acceptance that I am never going to get to a place where I'm going to be done learning.
Mm-hmm.
So there
Mm-hmm.
was just this like hunger to know more, learn more, try to be better with both of these individuals. And that drive, I think, that they had to continuously improve really came out in those discussions. And then the last big piece is probably the follow through.
Mm-hmm.
I'm big on action. In these 1 hour sessions together, we're going to uncover things, but the magic really happens when you take this learning back into your working world, back into your life. So at the end, I always give action items to people that I coach, and they always follow through on those so that the next call we came on board, we could follow up on those things and they saw results because
Mm-hmm.
of that. So it was the preparation beforehand, this intense drive and curiosity during conversations, and then that follow through at the end.
Now, the reverse of that, have you worked with people that did not prepare and would not follow through? Because I know I have, and there are times where
Yeah.
I've been like, oh, frustrated by that. I've talked to some other people about finding a balance between, okay, I'm the coach, I'm responsible for helping them, and also understanding that there's a certain level of personal accountability too, of course. So curious, like what you've seen, maybe even speak to how you've dealt with that with certain situations.
Sure. So I think I've been fortunate that of the, I don't even know how many, dozens and dozens of people that I've coached over the years, that I there was nobody that I was so frustrated
Yeah.
with. So I never got to that exact level, but definitely certain conversations were harder than others where,
Yeah.
you're asking questions and it just feels like this person is not showing up fully. It feels like pulling teeth to try to get information out of them. And so I can think of a few people who sometimes didn't really show up with anything that they wanted to talk about. And so it was really up to me to dig in and try to figure out what was going on and just trying to stay really, really curious. So
Hmm.
the consistently seeing somebody do that over time definitely has been frustrating for me in the past. And those coaching relationships don't really last long because a person
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
not fully on board, right? I can be a guide, I can help you, and you have to meet me halfway because a lot of the work is going to be on the coachee, not necessarily me. I'm setting things up, but you got to hit the ball and then figure out how you get better and better at that. And so the other thing that I sometimes think is frustrating, and I'm sure other coaches can relate to this is
Yeah.
people that constantly cancel or
Ah,
reschedule sessions.
yeah.
That's hard too. I totally understand things come up, and I'd be the first person to say, if a lot's going on right now and you feel stressed, nope this meeting right now, because
Yeah.
I want you to
Yeah.
show up on these coaching calls fully ready to dig in. And so, on occasion, if that happens, I totally understand, but when it happens consistently, that's always a sign to me, like, are they really invested?
Hmm.
Part of the reason why they came to me is because they're overwhelmed with all of the things. So are they not putting into practice some of the things that we talked about? And I'd say for people that that's happened with, or, I feel like it's pulling teeth, or they're stuck, or there's resistance, it's really trying to dig deep into the belief system or the mindset that's holding them back. Because that's usually the root
Absolutely.
cause, right? Is there some kind of limiting belief like this will never work with me? Or I'm a people pleaser and I need to be accessible to my staff 24/7, which means that I don't have time for my own growth, or this feels selfish to me, or because I've sought out a coach or I'm doing some kind of development work, it means something's wrong with me. So,
Hmm.
what is that belief? What is that mindset that's holding them back? And it's really just digging in with curious, open questions to try to pull out from them what these blockers. Sometimes it's also just helpful to start at the beginning. So we might be a several sessions in and I'm feeling resistance or there's a stuckness. Let's go back to the original goals. Are these still the
Hmm.
right things we need to be focusing on? If not, what is most important to you right now? And what is the thing that's keeping you up at night? Let's focus on that. And
Hmm.
then we can always come back to these longer term goals in the future. So it's really just, you're trying to triage what the challenge is and figure out, is it this big thing or is it some small things that are just in the way, that if we could peel the layers a little bit more, we can solve that and then get back into the real work.
And I found that for me, like that curiosity piece is something to just to keep working on as a coach and keep thinking about and keep working with clients about and being curious about what is it that they, because yeah, maybe what they came to you with, maybe something has changed. Maybe they're
Yeah.
thinking differently. Maybe they just forgot about like the initial goal and you can just
Yes.
by a simple question, okay, let's get back to that. Like now we're in the weeds of things. Okay, we're really digging at stuff. That's great. But let's think back to what our original goals were to try to help that overwhelm. Because yeah, I think in every case where people are getting coached, there's going to be that issue of
Yeah.
overwhelm, right? And it's yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I've done to try to help with this and try to be proactive and prevent it from happening is starting coaching conversations with wins. So, what are the wins from the last week or 2 weeks or
That's
three
good.
weeks, however long, and then tying them back to the goals. So, when I hear those wins, then I can say, oh, that's amazing. So, that ties back to this goal, and that ties back to this goal, and that ties back to this goal. So I'm always creating that red thread for them at every coaching conversation because it's so easy for us to get stuck in the weeds and
Hmm.
not see the big picture anymore. So it's a great way to be able to zoom out and start off on a positive note.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm curious too, because you have it in your headline, at least on LinkedIn, about the Clifton strengths, and
Oh yeah.
I'm always curious about the Clifton strengths because for me, I'm a huge fan of it. I've
Mm-hmm.
taken the test. I love thinking in terms of strengths. I'm still
Hmm.
surprised, and I wanted to talk about it a little bit because I'm still surprised sometimes when people say, "What's that?" And I'm like,
Yes.
how do you not know what this is? Like I get this like it to me it's like I've
Uh,
known this for wow like at least the last 5 years or so.
yeah.
Yeah, it's been something that has been super helpful to me even just having that framework of what my strengths are and how to focus on those. So, just curious, maybe yeah, just want to talk how you got started with that and then how it works its way
Yeah.
into your coaching sessions too. I think will be great for
Yeah.
the audience cuz yeah, if you're listening to this and you haven't heard of the Clifton Strengths, please go and check it out. Please go and take the test. So worth it. Anyway.
It is so worth it. So I was first introduced to Clifton Strengths when I got married. My mother-in-law actually
Mhm.
got the book for my husband and I,
Cool.
and we took the test, we talked about the results, and then the book sat on the shelf for a really long time.
Yeah.
So then it was kind of revived for me when I got a leadership role in learning and development, new HR director, and she came in and she loved the tool and said, I want to bring this to the manager's team. I'd really like to embed this in our HR group. And so and that was probably, I don't know, 8 years ago now, 9 years ago. It's been a while.
Hmm.
And so she really sparked more of my interest in Clifton Strengths and just generally this strengths based approach, which is the idea that let's not spend the majority of our effort on our weaknesses, on our deficits. We're not going to ignore them, but let's figure out more strategically how we can leverage the gifts and talents that we already have, the things that strengthen and energize us, and use those to minimize our weaknesses or eliminate our
Hmm.
weaknesses. Or better yet, let's look to our team that has gifts that we don't have and let's collaborate. Or let's work more collectively to get the outcomes and the results that we're looking for. So that's kind of how it
Hmm.
started. And there are so many tools out there. So I'm an
Yeah.
assessment junkie, and they all have different purposes. I think Clifton Strengths is really great for personal development, for leadership development, for career development. It's been the
Hmm.
best thing for my own career trajectory. There's lots of benefits in team collaboration and cohesion. It's a great engagement tool for increasing engagement and productivity on your teams. There's another one I love called Insights Discovery, which is a great communication tool for understanding your style and preference and how you prefer to interact with other people. So there's lots of great tools out there, which is another reason why people might not have heard of Clifton Strengths because they've done Emergenetics or Enneagram or,
Hmm.
one of the other millions of tools that are out there. And I think there's value in, many, many of them. It is really about finding the tool that makes sense for your
Hmm.
goals. And you're creating this common language among your team, among your organization that you can start. That's your foundation for building all of the other growth and development that you're trying to do, all the strategic skills, the people skills, the communication skills that you're trying to build in your team. So I think it makes for a really strong foundation. And I'd say the biggest thing that um, I don't know, plug or try to
Hmm.
encourage is don't just take the tool and let it sit there.
Yeah.
You've got to implement it. I'm working with an organization right now. I just actually got off a call with them yesterday, and we just talked through a laundry list of ways to embed strengths into the organization. So it's not like we took this great workshop, we did the assessment, we're so excited about it, and then it just dies.
Yeah.
So
That's really smart.
let's incorporate it into our one-to-one meeting conversations with our employees. How did you use your strengths this week? Let's incorporate it into the workshops that we offer to develop our employees. Let's make it a part of the performance reviews. So it's just looking for what things already exist that we can embed the language. We can embed this into the conversation. And when I'm doing one-to-one coaching, it's the same thing. Like, how can we truly integrate this into our coaching conversations? So we're tying back what you're trying to accomplish, creating it through the entire 6 months that we're working together.
And I think it's like you said, like having that the common language and having that even just I mean, I love these tests too. Enneagram,
Yeah.
MBTI, like I love them all because of the fact that it gets you a little bit more self-aware of what's going on with you. It gets you more aware of other people and what their strengths and skills and
Yeah.
personalities are. Like it really just gets you thinking about this stuff and talking about it.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
for me, like that's super cool. I've never thought about using something like the Clifton Strengths or other tools in my book coaching, but I think it could be an interesting thing just to know about people because there's so much that is just coaching and not even just like book coaching that goes into what I do and what I think a lot of people
Oh,
do. It's
yeah.
just general. And I was talking about this to someone else for this podcast, just about like, I never thought as a book coach that I would have to really talk about and work with people on accountability. I can
Hmm.
help people with that, but I didn't think I'd be like working like as almost as an accountability coach for them, you know? But I've had to do
Yeah.
that. That's been part of that. And I think it's so interesting um, how much goes just across all the different of the different potential things you can get coached for, just the similarities there. So yeah.
I mean, I'm just whirling now because I'm thinking about, oh, yeah, you could totally incorporate this tool and then use it as a way to say, okay, for your book, what are the strengths that are going to help you? What can you
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
leverage? And then what's going to trip you up? Because some of these strengths that are lesser themes for you could be really helpful in writing a book, but they're going to be draining for you. So we got to rethink our strategy. So for example, me sitting down and typing and writing at the computer for hours on end when I'm a very social person would
Hmm.
never work with me. So knowing that, knowing my strengths really lie in being with people, it could be as simple as making sure you're in a location where there's people as you're writing,
Hmm.
or let's do audio and you're saying out loud your book and be captured on your computer. It's on your phone. So it's just like we're going to rethink our strategy based on the strengths that you bring to the table. Health coaching, you could do the same thing with that, right? Let's start out with some kind of strengths assessment so we can understand what are the things that are going to help you, what are the things that are going to trip you up, and how can we
Hmm.
really leverage those things that are your natural talents and gifts to make sure that you're successful. Because then you have more of a customized strategy and process for the individual. And this is something they can take in so many other avenues as well. So sorry, my mind is just whirling on all like the cool things that could happen
Oh,
and how you could incorporate it.
yeah, my mind is too, because I feel like it's just like it's almost in some ways like an icebreaker too, of like help me get to know you a little bit and
Yes, yes.
help me get to know how I'm going to be able to best show up for you as a coach. Because yeah, I think exactly what you said. Like, and for me, consistency is the last strength that I have. It's number 34. It's like I
Mm-hmm.
am not going to be the person that does something every day. I struggle with that. And it's the simple answer for me is like, Jordan, don't write every day. Like,
Mm-hmm.
even though that goes
Mm-hmm.
against the common advice that some people will say, like, gotta write 500 words a day, like that's the only way to do it. Like some people will say that. I've always been against that because that's not how it's worked for me. And
Exactly.
yeah, there are different ways to go about these things. And if you know that about yourself, okay, Jordan, you're going to struggle with doing this every day. The easy answer is just don't do it every day. Like schedule around
Yeah.
that. Schedule other times, schedule longer sessions. For
Yeah.
me, I go and write like on a Friday night. I have people are out and partying and drinking whatever. For me, it's like I want to go to a cafe and just write. Like that's when I get
Yeah.
my distraction free time. Like it's about what works for you. And yeah, I could see
Exactly.
that as an interesting part about what I do. I'll have to think about that and brainstorm some ideas there too. Because and maybe
Yeah,
it could be helpful for anyone um, with their coaching
absolutely.
to
And it
know more
doesn't
about their clients.
always have to be Clifton Strengths. I think it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. I worked with a coach who used Enneagram, and that was
Hmm.
kind of the starting point. But like you said, it's a great icebreaker. All of a sudden, you start to understand the person a little bit more and what they're bringing to the table. So yeah, it's so good.
Yeah. All right, let's jump into coachability. So what does being
Mm.
coachable mean to you? I have a lot of thoughts and I relate to this a lot, but just curious what you think about this.
Yeah, so I think it's some of the things that I talked about that come out of those great coachees that I had. The curiosity piece, I think that's important,
Mm.
that are coachable. They're curious, they're open to seeing their own flaws, which is not always easy,
Yeah, that's
but
that's a tough
someone,
one.
so yeah, but somebody that can say, I'm not perfect and I am fallible and I am open to learning new things. I understand that I don't know everything and I might not know everything. And so I think that belief really can help to make someone coachable. At the end of the day, it's just this willingness. Like it's a willingness to show up and to share and be honest, and to know that there is space for growth.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think like I find that it's in all of that, key trait that I find is humility. And it's exactly what I mean. That
Yes.
describes what you said. Being willing
Yes.
to
Hmm.
say, I am getting help because I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Like here are all the things that I'm good at. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's what I can bring to the table. And like you said before, coming to the conversation, knowing what I want to work on, that's all great. But knowing what I want to work on and the fact that, hey, I'm coming to you because yes, I have this stuff that I want to work on, but I don't know how to access the next level for these things.
Yeah.
And I think it's just that willingness to admit that you don't know that is very I think people see that as very difficult. People struggle with
Mhm.
that, especially if they haven't been coached in other avenues or if they haven't done something like it before. Um, then
Yeah.
it can be challenging.
There was this presentation I went to at a conference a couple of years ago, and they talked about coachability. And there was research that they shared about how when we get in higher levels of leadership and higher positions, our coachability actually goes down.
Hmm.
There is something, some wiring that happens in our brain where we become less and less coachable because each time we go on that rung of the ladder, we think, oh, I made it here. Well, I don't need that. Oh, I made it here. Well, I don't need that. Oh, I made it here. Well, I don't need that. And to really combat that, the people that combat that, they're much more intentional about their growth and they're really
Hmm.
focused on continuing to grow. So even coachability, I think it doesn't necessarily, sometimes I think we think about the humility piece and flaws and things like that. Sometimes you're doing great, but the coachability is knowing that you can always be a little bit
Hmm.
better. That there's still room to grow, even if you don't feel like there's all these flaws or you're missing the mark. I'm actually doing great, but I know I could be even better.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's like humility with a mix of modesty and like
Yeah,
and realizing, yeah, like exactly what you said. Like, okay, I've made progress. I've done X, Y, and Z, but I'm missing out on the rest of the alphabet, right? Like I'm missing out on
yeah,
certain areas. I'm doing some things great, but I'm still not getting exactly I'm not getting the results I want. So
yeah,
what am I missing?
yeah,
It's a good balance there, I think, that people can have. Well,
yeah.
it takes time. It takes working with a coach sometimes before you realize what your barriers to growth are, you know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's hard for we need somebody else to hold up the mirror. And that's
Yeah.
really what a
Yeah.
coach helps us do.
Yeah, absolutely. So thinking about the past year, what would you say your biggest lesson has been as a coach?
Hmm. I'd say one thing I've noticed is that we're all dealing with very similar problems. So I've talked to lots of leaders in a lot of different industries, and the buckets of challenges are very similar. I talked about
Hmm.
the time management and communication and team dynamics. Those are some of the big things that continue to come up. And another thing that was really an aha moment for me, I have done a lot around managing time, managing calendars, making sure you're focused on importance. But I didn't really build that as much into the leadership development that I did until I spoke with a leader. Um, we were just chatting about something. I was talking about different things that I'm working on. And I mentioned the piece about managing time and, how people have been struggling a little bit more lately with that. And she's like, that's it. That's what I'd pay for a coach to help me with,
Hmm.
is starting with helping me to figure out my workload and navigate my workload. Leaders are not going to want to invest in themselves or not even have the bandwidth to invest in themselves if they feel like their workload is overwhelming. Let me
Yeah.
help them with that first. Let me help them not work nights and weekends, have the space to then really dig into some of these other communication, strengths, feedback, all of these other topics that are really important for leaders.
Makes a ton of sense because how if they're already busy and overwhelmed,
Yeah,
how are they gonna fit like time with you into their schedule if they don't have the bandwidth? So
exactly.
that's I mean that's kind of like that's great as far as like a first thing. And someone else was talking about this the other day about like it's helpful to have people have helpful to, as much as you can to give people those quick wins when they start working with you. And that sounds like
Exactly.
that sounds way more than a quick win. That sounds like a thank you for freeing up my time. You know, now I feel like I can breathe. Let's have a conversation.
Yes.
Because how do you have a
Yeah,
conversation about what you can change if you can't even, if you're that overwhelmed and that busy and don't even have a weekend?
I know.
I don't
I know.
know.
I've been working with an executive who, when she got on the call with me, she's just like, I'm working all the time. I work when I get up in the morning, I go to the
Hmm.
office, I work when I come back, I work on weekends. It's got to stop. I feel like I need to be accessible 24/7. And we're finally at the point, we've been working together for several months. We're at the point where she's not working weekends. She takes off every other Friday. She's not going into the office as much. She's created boundaries for herself. And now she's like, okay, I'm ready for the next level. I want to dig into other things like feedback and team dynamics and growing the organization and really stepping into the mind of an executive more and being that vision, the innovative visionary for the company. And I'm like,
Yes.
yes, let's do it.
Is
But we
that
had to we had to give her the bandwidth first.
yeah, yeah. Is that how you would describe someone that graduates your program? I don't know if that's the best way to say it, but what
Ooh.
qualities do they possess? What are they looking at? Like, kind of what have they used in terms of their own skills and abilities to work their way through your program?
Yeah, so that's the phase one. Phase one is let's get a handle on your
Mm-hmm.
workload so you are not feeling quite as overwhelming, and that you have space to breathe and take on some of these new things. So that graduation from phase one is okay, I'm not working 70 hours a week. I'm not working on weekends anymore. I do feel like I have space on my calendar to actually think and start building some of the other skills or even strengthening some of the other skills
Yep.
that I need. And then the second phase we get into is really around confidence and presence. Like, how do I build my leadership confidence? We dig a little bit more into the strengths work with that. We dig into communication skills, having tough conversations, giving and receiving feedback. What are some of those limiting beliefs that might be getting in the way of you feeling confident or feeling like you have strong leadership presence? And once they start to build their confidence, it's not going to be 100%, right? Because confidence, you can still feel uncomfortable. It's not
Mm-hmm.
about perfection. But once they start feeling a little bit more comfortable in their own leadership skin, if you will, and they feel like they're using their strengths, then we go to the final phase, which is your team. Let's focus on your team. Let's focus on trust and psychological safety. Let's focus on really playing to the strengths of your team and growing your team. And then that's when they graduate from the full program, is when they start really implementing some of the things that we've talked about for their self into their teams. And they're ready to create a plan for the 6 months to a year that they can step away from the program.
I love that as like just thinking about that as like an end goal. It's not even just like what can they do for themselves. It's like
Hmm.
leadership is that's what it's about, right? So
Yeah.
they're freeing up their time, they're getting less overwhelmed. Great, but then looking at how can you do this for your team? How can you kind of
Yeah.
trickle down that learning? I think that's fantastic. And that seems to me like maybe there's some similarities, but it does seem unique to like the leadership coaching because it's
Yeah.
beyond just them. It's beyond like, when
Right.
I got my health coaching, it was about me, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
not teaching someone else behind me like, oh, this is also how you can do this. But
Yeah.
then yeah, the leadership is different in that way. I guess I didn't really think of it. But yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah, and then that's why I don't only do coaching. About half my business is coaching, and then the other
Hmm.
half is that team development work,
Hmm.
because sometimes it's this combination of one-to-one coaching and working with their team that really is the thing that makes it sticky, makes it more sustainable. So that's my happy place, is when I can do some kind of hybrid where I'm working with the individual and then I can work with their team to really integrate. That's like it's the best.
Hmm. I'm just curious. I'm thinking back to what we were talking about in terms of the sometimes leaders may not realize that they need the help. They may not they realize
Yeah.
they're with you, but then there may be some stumbling blocks of like not realizing yeah what they need to do next. Do you find that
Mhm.
like how do you give them feedback in that moment? I'm just asking because I'm wondering it just seems like leaders specifically that are already at that higher level, I feel like would be
Mhm.
difficult because I feel like you'd have to be very careful with how you talk to them. Not careful in terms of they're going to get mad at you, but just like having a conversation with that.
Yeah. Well, this is where building that relationship with the coachee is so important.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and I think knowing that I'm wearing different hats in the conversation is important too. So sometimes I am going to
Hmm.
be the coach and I'm going to ask questions. I'm not going to give you the solution. And sometimes the person does need an advisor or a mentor. And so I have to
Hmm.
put that hat on. Sometimes the person's just having a hard time and they need a companion. They need someone
Hmm.
that's just going to be an empathetic person. So part of building trust in a relationship with the individual coachee is shifting and being dynamic in those conversations so that I'm knowing what they need and making sure that I'm adjusting to it. So once I've built that trust with the individual, that's when I'll start sharing observations. So that's typically how I give
Hmm.
feedback is, so I have an observation I'd like to share with you. Is that okay? And almost 100% of the time they say yes. I don't know why that word observation, it feels like okay for them. And
Maybe it
also we've
invites
established
curiosity. It's
maybe,
like, oh,
maybe.
I really actually I want to know, even if it might hurt.
Yeah,
Like I still want
yeah,
to
yeah.
know.
So then I'll say something like, here's what I hear you saying. This is
Hmm.
the action that I'm seeing, and they're not aligning.
Mm.
Or here's another perspective. So here's another perspective I could offer. That's another way that sometimes I'll give feedback as well. So, it's a nuanced
Hmm.
space. You got to be able to read the person. But I have found because I'm in that coach role and they know that I don't have any other agenda, I'm not trying to manipulate, like I don't have there's no negative intent behind what I'm
Hmm.
sharing. And they came to me for support, that people are far more open to feedback in that setting versus if I was their boss or a peer. That might come off a little bit differently.
And that is something I've had to struggle with and really come into my own with in thinking of it in terms of, okay, they're working with me. They need to hear this, right? Even if it's difficult for them to hear, it's my like
Mhm.
job, so to speak. It's my
Yeah.
it's my responsibility to say that, even if it's going to make me uncomfortable, them uncomfortable. And that at first that was difficult for me as a more like an empathetic person who I really do
Yeah.
care about my clients. I'm like, I don't want to hurt them, but like sometimes and the better the relationship is, the easier it is to have a conversation like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's not going to be easy some like a lot of the time, especially if it's something that they're just missing, if it's a blind spot. So
Yeah. Well,
it takes
and there's
work.
this other, it does take work. And there's this added layer with coaching, doing leadership coaching, where I'm also trying to role model,
Yeah.
right? Because the things that I'm doing with them, I want them to coach their employees as well. So
Hmm.
I'm trying to role model what that looks like so that they can then do that with their teams as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I think that's a cool another like very interesting and cool part of being like a leadership coach specifically, that it's like it's different. It's like, oh, I also have to be thinking in that moment that
Yeah.
I am role modeling this and how to have that conversation. So that, yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah. It's like if I can't give feedback to this person, how am I going to expect them to give feedback to their
Yeah.
direct reports as well? And that's, a huge part of what I try to coach people on as well, is really helping them to build feedback cultures within their teams and organizations. So it's got to start in our one-on-one relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is kind of like a side question, but I know coaches are very interested in this. I'm interested in it myself. What has
Yeah.
worked for you in terms of not just growing your business, but finding people to work with? Be curious if there's one thing you'd say like this thing kind of this started it for me, or yeah.
Yeah. So trying to like get new clients, is that what you're
Yeah.
asking about?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I do a few different avenues with that. And one of the spaces that's really helped me is staying very close to HR and learning and development
Mm.
individuals. And that's my background. I worked in learning and development for many, many, many years, led the learning function in organizations, was part of HR departments. They're my people. So being part of networking groups,
Hmm.
speaking in front of those groups has been super helpful because half my clients come through that space. They're a lot of times the decision makers, or they're the ones that the CEO might say, hey, can you find somebody to do leadership development for us? And so it's that HR rep or that L&D rep that reaches out to me and we talk through things. And because I know what it's like to be in HR and L&D, we
Hmm.
kind of have that instant camaraderie. So that has been great for me. Internal networks, certainly people that I know in my network, continuing to stay present on LinkedIn and connecting with new people has been helpful. And then speaking engagements, getting in front of people at conferences who potentially could be my client, talking in front of associations, local groups. That has been, and I love speaking too. So that's been another really great avenue. A lot of it at the end of the day is just relationships and
Hmm.
visibility. So get out in front of people as much as possible. Really focus on your brand because that's going to be a huge piece of career success.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people share that, especially recently too, with just doing something in person. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
recently, like especially if you're thinking of like what AI can do now, it
Mm-hmm.
can do a lot of things, but it can't yet, it can't replace that like in-person connection conversation you can have with someone.
No.
And I think
Yeah.
there's so much impact in just like being able to see the person in person, or even just like
Yeah.
even a video. Doing more content with video and doing podcasts like this, I think can be helpful for coaches. It's just get
Yeah.
another way for people to connect with you. Um, that's not just the written word. I think there's more.
Yeah. Well, because at the end of the day, most people are buying you. They're
Yeah,
buying your
100%.
personality, your style. The results are important, but we want to be able to connect. If I'm looking for a coach, I want to be able to connect with that coach. And so that's another reason why, like you said, videos, podcasts, you just get to know a person a little bit better that way.
Yeah, totally. All right. So last couple of questions here. I like to ask this one because I like to make sure people can share what they want to share if they have something they want to stand up and shout from the rooftops. But is there a soapbox that you have that you like to stand on? If so, share it with us.
Sure. I would say that leaders are really hard on themselves.
Mm,
And other people can be really hard on leaders as well. There's a lot of villainization, especially with higher levels of leadership. We're all trying to do the best that we can, given
hmm
the resources, given the education we have, given how we're feeling that day. And so I want more people to approach each other with kindness and humanity. It doesn't mean we're excusing bad behavior. We're starting with that. We're starting from a positive place. So if we do have to have that tough conversation with an individual, we're still treating them with dignity and respect and support. So I think that's my biggest soapbox is
hmm
just remember people are getting up and generally they are doing the best they can. So let's give people some space and grace.
I love that. I think that as far as soapboxes to stand on, that's beautiful. That's a great one to stand on. So thank you for adding that. I think that, and it's true, and it's also, yeah, we're all human and we're all trying, right? Like
Yeah.
let's give people the benefit of the doubt, give them grace, and yeah, I'll stand on that with you. I love it. All right, Jen, where can people find you, work with you, engage with you, talk to you?
Sure. LinkedIn, I'm very active on LinkedIn. So, Jennifer Recla, please find me on there. And then my website, JenRecla.com is the best place to know more about what it looks like to work with me, the programs that I offer. So yeah, those are the two places.
Okay, perfect. I'll put those links in the show notes in the summary. All right, Jen, thank you so much for being here today. Super appreciate your time and thank you for sharing all your wisdom with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Sure thing. Are you still here listening to this podcast? You're awesome. I got two CTAs for you. Number one, subscribe to this podcast for more. And number two, have you ever thought about writing a book? Contact Jordan. He can help you out. Jordan at jmring.com.